Disclaimer, I do not dislike CinemaSins, and that is not a lie. For my 100th Everything Wrong with CinemaSins video, I'm going to be sending their video on up. And not only am I giving a thanks dedication to Real Strong RU for requesting this video, but I'm also doing this video in memory of Ed Asner and Christopher Plummer. Enjoy, everyone. To start off, Sinning what is, in my opinion, the best animated film out there.
We're all painfully aware that Disney and Pixar are the same thing, yet Disney still feels the need to jerk itself off for 40 seconds before the movie starts.
Jimmy makes an inappropriate comment cliche.
Spotlight on adventure!
Movie steals the expositional documentary inside the actual movie motif from Citizen Kane.
Well, movies can make references to other media all the time, so I wouldn't really say that this is stealing from Citizen Kane. And similarly, like what Esmina told me, YouTubers like me and him were inspired by the Birdman and aren't trying to just copy off of him.
Jiminy Cricket, to the locals consider Muntz the bee's knees. And how?
It sounds like Pixar's turn-of-the-century idiom generator just malfunctioned. I mean, holy mackerel, how many cockeyed phrases are these bums gonna throw at me?
Jimmy sends himself cliche.
Natural Explorers Society accuses Muntz of fabricating the skeleton.
Why? Because this guy doesn't know how to use a compass? Or this guy doesn't know how bones work? Or possibly because it's convenient to the plot?
Because they believe the Kevin species doesn't really exist, which is what leads to Muntz vowing to bring back Kevin from Paradise Falls.
Adventure!
Carl conveniently overhears Ellie say this just as he walks past the dilapidated house, prompting him to find out who said it.
Yeah, so?
Ellie just saw the same screening of Muntz's documentary. How was she able to find this abandoned house and rig it up to play Explorer before Carl had enough time to walk past it and catch her in the middle of her narrative?
I don't think that's what happened. I think Ellie already saw that screening prior to this date and found her at her club a while ago.
Carl's balloon, that Ellie now inexplicably possesses, still has enough helium in it to lift a large stick just high enough into the air to go into Carl's room, and by some kind of dog-talking level witchcraft is able to change directions as soon as it reaches Carl's bedroom window.
Well, yeah, that's what we're being shown here.
Wow.
Movie completely blows past Ellie dropping her tomboy persona and how this couple managed to stay in love during their awkward high school years and college years based on their mutual respect of Charles Muntz.
Seeing this fantastic montage.
And then suddenly, without any warning, Pixar sends you into a montage that is both full of sadness and joy and more sadness, without a word of dialogue spoken. It's like one of those great Pixar shorts that precede all of the full-length features. And I think I just cried a little. It's downright incredible, and we're removing 5 sins for its brilliance.
Alright, that's very much appreciated, and I'll do the same thing.
So, was Carl sentenced by the court to live in a retirement community? Is it a retirement village/prison?
Yes, Carl was sentenced by the court to move into Shady Oaks, and also the scene you're talking over answers your question.
Sorry, Mr. Fredrickson. You don't seem like a public menace to me. Take this. The guys from Shady Oaks will be by to pick you up in the morning, okay?
Man, Carl was a terrible balloon salesman. Also, how did he have the time to blow up all these balloons and keep them hidden before the Shady Oaks folks showed up?
Well, at one point in the film, Carl says that it took him all night to get all the balloons set up, so I think that answers your question.
And are we really expected to believe that Carl isn't physically fit enough to walk down the stairs in his own house, but can climb all over the roof to tie those balloons and set up a steering mechanism?
Well, an animated film like this doesn't have to adhere to reality, so at least some suspension of disbelief is needed when watching it.
There's no amount of balloons this movie could animate that would convince me balloons could rip a house from its foundation and all its connected utilities.
See the previous sin.
Aw, ain't that nice? The airplane billboard features South America prominently in this North American town. You know, because of the story.
Pointing things out on the screen.
Whoa, is this how you steer your house?
You'd think, but Carl has done zero steering since he got in the air. And it's totally, absolutely amazing he hasn't checked to see if he needs to dodge aircraft or tall buildings. But if you train these balloons well, they know where to go.
But he did, which you showed in Sin 35, like Jay Exci said in his video.
See? Cumulonimbus.
Wow, good thing Russell is impossibly here, so he could warn Carl about the clouds. If not, Carl would have just been sleeping in his chair when the storm came in and movie over. At least we would have had the montage.
And because that didn't happen, what's the point of this sin, Jer?
In South America, alright.
Was Carl asleep for several days, or does the movie want me to believe they were a storm and a nap away from Venezuela?
I think it's more so the latter.
The momentum of this giant house, guided by balloons and being dragged by an elderly person and a child, stops right at the edge of the cliff, just like all the airplanes, tanks, Fast and Furiouses, and Starship Enterprises we've ever seen.
Pointing things out on the screen.
I think that a 50-ton kite wouldn't allow a kid and an old man to maintain their position, but you'd be wrong.
And like I said before, that might be because this film doesn't need to adhere to real-world rules, because it's animated.
Not only do they drop out of the f***ing sky right on top of the place where Carl and Ellie always wanted to go, but they just so happen to be adjacent to the vista that's painted above their fireplace.
Yeah, so?
I came all this way just to get stuck at the wrong end of this rock pile?
Talk about crotchety. Carl accidentally flies his house hundreds of miles and ends up just a few short miles of where he wants to be, and he's still pissed?
Why was accidentally in there? He did this on purpose in order to keep his promise to Ellie and get to Paradise Falls.
After all, we weighed down.
How? Plot convenient physics?
Yeah, probably. Otherwise there wouldn't be a movie.
Tracks? Snipe!
Even though Russell still has his zoology badge, he still thinks this pterodactyl-sized footprint was left behind by a snipe.
Actually, it's pronounced zoology, which would also be a sin to the movie as well, since it uses the pronunciation of zoology.
Mr. Fredrickson is nice.
Kevin, a made-up animal that is indigenous to South America, has a keen understanding of the English language.
Yeah, so?
Have you seen a bird? I want to find one, and I've been on the scent. I'm a great tracker.
So does this collar give these dogs a basic level of human intelligence too? Or is this movie suggesting that dogs have the capacity to think just like we do, but are unable to express themselves because they don't have human vocal cords?
And it's the latter, since the dogs wouldn't be able to talk without the collars. Talk meaning expressing what it is that they're thinking.
Also, if I put this collar on a cow or a chicken, would they be able to speak in the same way? Would that mean that all animals are secretly just as intelligent as we are, but are unable to express themselves?
Jeremy asks questions that aren't relevant to the movie cliché.
I think that did the trick.
Hi, Master.
Yep, I'm gonna sin the old pastime of a cartoon character and possibly transporting ahead of the other characters. It's what we do, unfortunately.
Well, you don't have to, since stuff like this can happen all the time in cartoons.
Are you Charles Muntz? Yes?
If he's actually Charles Muntz, that would mean that he's at least 15 to 20 years older than Carl. I imagine Carl is in his late 70s, which would put Charles well into his 90s. Which isn't impossible, but I imagine it would be hard to maintain your health with just a bunch of dogs, a finite amount of food, and no doctors. I mean, he's never even had a prostate exam.
Okay, you definitely aren't wrong here, since Muntz should be older than Carl, but there's a reason for this being the case. In an earlier version of this film, Kevin's eggs were to grant immortality if you ate them, which is why Muntz would be about Carl's age. However, Pixar eventually scrapped that, but at that point it had been too late to change Muntz still being alive, hence what's shown in the film. Again, you're not wrong, but I figure I should let you know that.
Muntz found a cave large enough to fit his blimp.
Yeah, so?
Put him in the cone of shame.
What do they tell the dogs that need to have operations when they have to wear this cone? Is it still the cone of shame? Why not have a crate of shame?
Well, like earlier, that's not relevant to the main story, so the movie isn't going to be taking time to explain it.
Epsilon is the finest chef I've ever had.
The dog? How does he do anything?
Well, he presumably has his own way of cooking, and since the dogs poured and served the drink earlier, I can buy that Epsilon can cook.
More often I get thieves come to steal what's rightfully mine.
You do? You mean there are actual people out there making trips to remote parts of South America to steal your shit?
No, they weren't. The people that Muntz is implied to have murdered were assumed by him to have been seeking Kevin for themselves when that wasn't in fact the case, and he had that belief because of his insanity.
Oh, I've spent a lifetime tracking it.
And Carl and Russell ran into it within minutes of arriving at Paradise Falls.
Not exactly, since they walked a far distance before they met Kevin.
But it ran off. It's gone now.
Carl lies to Muntz for Kevin, even though he's made it clear several times that he doesn't care for the bird, and he knows Muntz won't kill him because in order to be vindicated, he has to return with the bird alive. Carl should know that if he's just honest about the Kevin, Muntz won't harm him or Russell. If anything, he's just putting Russell and himself in serious danger.
But Carl's not lying, because Kevin did run away earlier, and this is before Carl sees Kevin on the roof of his house. Also, why did you say the Kevin here? Why not just Kevin?
The house survives this.
I can buy that, since the house hit a rock earlier in the movie and only one part of a front window ended up breaking.
Doug uses his super strength to push these boulders down to block the pack of dogs.
Narration.
Now Russell survives this.
Probably because his backpack hit the rock, which made him not get hurt.
Doghound scream.
Pointing something out in the movie.
And with all their treacherous detours, they still made it to the falls side of the cliff, just as the balloons ran out of lift.
Narration.
On some of these pictures Carl flips through in Ellie's scrapbook, I can honestly say, where is camera? You're telling me they set up a delay on a camera and got these candid shots?
Sinning this part of the film for any reason.
Carl slings a hose and gets the sprayer to grab onto the cargo door on the first try. Then he ziplines down it like it's second nature.
Pointing things out on the screen again.
The dogs can cook a gourmet meal and tie a human boy to a chair, but still need a chew toy to fire a gun on a biplane.
And that's because the chew toy is the button that fires the bullets.
Okay, I've been pretty forgiving of Carl's super old person abilities, but I'm gonna have to draw the line at climbing an upside down ladder and almost falling off but catching himself.
Well, you don't have to, since this doesn't have to be realistic, and that's drawing from the fact that movies aren't real.
I put more faith in the house ripping Carl's arms off before I believe any of the shit I'm seeing right now.
Well, you should go with the latter, since, like I said before, this purposefully isn't realistic.
You mean to tell me the house landed right off? Forget it.
Seeing this touching ending, for any reason at all. And here's the end result, everybody. This in total is 514. The sentence will be floating away on balloons. Thank you for watching, everybody, and have a nice day.